Namaste, Jai Bharat. There was a news last 1 2 days. Two nuns, if I'm not wrong, were arrested by Chhatisgarh police, produced to the court, and were remanded to judicial custody. The affair says that they were involved in human trafficking. Now, human trafficking, when we say, is a broad term. There are ingredients to the concept of human trafficking, and that these people of these nuns were found traveling with most likely small girls in train, were questioned by the police, most likely railway police, and then since they these people were operating in Chhatisgarh, they were arrested, produced to the court, and then judicial remand, custody down. Now it's not very clear whether these nuns were traveling. They are actually from the state of Kerala. It's not clear that they were traveling from Chhatisgarh to Kerala or vice versa. In all likelihood, they must have been traveling from Chhatisgarh to Kerala. Now this suddenly appears very innocent, in the sense that human trafficking, when you say human trafficking, what comes to people's mind will be something different, not what is done by these nuns, but then it is really human trafficking. When you really look at it, it is really human trafficking. Well, the first part, these people, these nuns, they are involved in missionary activities, and for them, missionary activities are conversion, religious conversion. And they don't go about missionary activities and conversions with the people who are a little more conscious, but they focus mostly on the backward areas, which is mostly hills, hillside, where there are tribals. The tribals actually, we don't intervene in their life except by giving healthcare, education, etc. But they have their own distinct faith system. That's what the policy of Bharat is. The tribes, they have their ways of life, very distinct faith system. They have their distinct rituals, and they have their distinct ways of life. And the nation Bharat actually supports multiplicity and plurality. Now that is the epistemology of the Vedas. The epistemology of the Vedas are coexistence of the multiple and plural, because the Veda Upanishadic knowledge tradition understands, accepts, and promotes or supports the nature of nature as multiple and plural. But this had been a Hindu perspective. This had always been a Hindu way of life and way of understanding the other. We don't understand the other as Sartre, the existentialism, understands the other. There's a hell of a lot of difference between these two, understanding the other. We don't have the other, as a matter of fact, when it comes down to long discussion and concluding that we don't have the other. So these missionaries, they originally they come from state of Kerala, which is the southernmost point of Bharat, and they go to areas where the tribes are spread in all over Bharat. They go to such pockets, and the missionary zeal is so that they go and start living with them, make impressions on them. They also start schools or things like that, and along with schools they also planned a church. And all these things are not really for the welfare of the people, but with the sole objective of converting them into Christianity, whichever denomination of Christians they are. Now, there is also an economic nexus behind it, in the sense that they need money, and these activities are supported by agencies outside Bharat. Missionary activities are still supported by agencies outside Bharat who have funds, and they want to channelize funds to such activities. So these people get plenty of funds from outside. Initially there were no restrictions of such a fund coming into Bharat, but then later that there were checks and balances of late. for such funds, but in spite of all those things, the funds come, these people work towards conversion. Now, why you go to people and convert? Actually, even Mahatma Gandhi said that conversion is a crime. Religious conversion is a crime because he spoke it in terms of Christianity, certainly not in terms of Islam. That is his dichotomy, rather. So he said that conversion is a crime. It's a violence, he says. He was speaking in terms of violence, non-violence, and this conversion is a violence. Of course, it is violence. Now, in a society where people are capable of making choices intellectually, emotionally, and knowledgeably, when a person is capable of making a choice, well, that's all right, understood. Someone wants to choose one religion over the other because he has a conviction that this is better than the other, then it's okay. That's one thing. That's very spontaneous, natural. No one is going to have any objection towards it. But when you talk to a person, there are many professors I came across, unfortunately, they celebrate the ignorance of people sitting in front of them. This professor is quite well read. He has knowledge areas within him, but he talks to people, taking them for a complete ride, taking advantage of the ignorance of the people sitting in front of him, and that I call as celebrating the ignorance of people in front of him, because they don't know. For them, this man becomes an authority of knowledge, and whatever he says, they accept. Even if they want to question, they do not have the knowledge structure to question him. They don't have the knowledge structure and analytical abilities to raise questions and unpack the emptiness of what he's trying to present. That is called celebrating the ignorance of a hapless, helpless people sitting in front of him. This is what precisely these nuns do in areas like Chhatisgarh and many such places. One of my good friend is from Chhatisgarh, a professor. This is what they do. These people do not know anything. They have never been trained. They have only started their kind of getting enlightenment in the Buddhist way. And they enter into the societies and present themselves as one among them. They have this gimmick or technique of copying the ways of the tribes into which they enter. They learn the language, they be with them, they interact with them, and then tell them you're completely wrong. Your systems are very, 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 very primitive. You're pagans, they say, and then get modernized, get civilized, do this, do that. So they are taking advantage of their ignorance of themselves. This is really a crime, and this really is violence. This is their activities. But they were arrested not for these. They were arrested for picking up small girls from that area and taking them to wherever they want and employing them for whatever things. Employing in the sense not literally employing, but using them for whatever things they want. This I say because I've come across this directly. Many times I've seen these nuns traveling, the small girls from areas where they work, taking them to places where, as using them as housemates in their own relatives' house, etc., etc. And these children from the tribe background think that they are opened now to the world wide, and they're subjected to subaltern existence. What's the point? From subaltern existence, from one subaltern existence, if it is there, you're shifting him to another subaltern existence with a changed categories of structure. That is from their own tribal religions to a Christianity or a modern religion. So this changed structure is definitely worse than the residual structure if at all it was subaltern, but not so subaltern in as I understand, because they coexist with the national mainstream. Because we have space for such people. The nation has space for such people. The nation has space for such belief system. The nation has respect for their aboriginal thoughts. Ultimately, as a Vedantin or as an Advaita Vedantin, from the Upanishadic perspective, you find these people eventually ultimately belong to the broad Hindu spectrum. So from our side, we look at them as Hindus. Hindu dharma is multiple, manifold variations or varieties of existence. This is one such variety. Their faith system gets perfectly fitted into the Veda Upanishadic knowledge tradition and the Hindu dharma. Perfectly gets fitted into it. They do in their own way, but in real in step, in congruence with the Veda Upanishadic knowledge tradition. So that's how Bharat looks at these people. But with the categories which are not originally belonging to Bharat from abroad, when you look at these people, you consider them as pagans. You consider them as primitives. You consider them as inferior. And then you attempt to civilize. That's a whole thing the missionaries were trying to do to the entire world. They go to the Africa and say that we are civilizing them. And these people are imposing their understanding on them. And even today, you find Europe doing the same idiosyncrasy of saying that we are better than you. And there is something called as objectivity. There is something called as reality, which they don't understand. They refuse to understand even if someone understands. And if anyone tries to understand these things and ask them, tell them that you are doing mistake, they would immediately subject that person to heretic if it is within their possibility, within their abilities and chance to do so. So this is nuns, fine. And these children are taken for what we do not know, mostly for private works, household maids, housemaid, this and that, etc., etc., or maybe to keep them as cooks, servants, sweepers, janitors, etc., in their houses where the nuns live and the priests live, etc. So these girls are used as subalterns in their places. This definitely is human trafficking. And of course, the judge who kept them under judicial custody is not idiot. He understands what he's doing, and he understands what is meant to be a nun. Just for one thing, the society of Bharat gives respect to a priestly attire. Anyone standing with the priestly attire, irrespective of whichever denomination it belongs to, automatically and spontaneously gets a kind of attention and respect and recognition. And when that person remains within his limits of attire, then everything goes fine, and he perfectly lives happily in such situations of his existence, which is supposed to be coexistence with others. But that is a situation in Bharat. And here, of course, just because you wear a religious attire doesn't mean that you can transcend the law or you can go beyond the law. Incidentally, it's only very recently that these people, the clergy, started paying income tax to government of Bharat. Then you ask, where do they get income from? Most of these people may be employed as teachers or in colleges or schools, mostly schools. And I also had a colleague who recently expired, who was a Catholic priest. He was department head, director. We were very good friends. Personally, I was very good friend with that father. Of course, we call him as father in spite of he being a professor, I being a professor. We don't call names. When I had students who were from the clergy background, we call them as father because out of respect towards a group of people's faith system. That's decency, that's nobility. So this father had been a great friend of me because we both belonged to the same discipline and understanding. Though he was in a different department. He was heading that department, I was heading this different department, but very good friend of me, but elder to me quite. Their work and his salary goes to their community. He's selfless. He lives for a kind of conviction. And he also, I don't know if he was not paying income tax or not, but generally, these people don't pay income tax. That's what I hear. About this priest, I don't know because I never inquired into his personal life. Father, do you pay income tax or not? Maybe he must have been paying because in our university these things were commonly done. Everyone used to pay income tax. I don't think anyone was making a decision. He's a priest, so he did not pay income tax. I don't think it was the case. But the case with the Chhatisgarh people, I heard someone saying until recent, these people were not paying income tax and no one was taking action on it. Of course, that's true. If they don't pay income tax, at least in the previous regimes, they won't just take action because they are clergy. Now, there's no justification like that. A clergy or not clergy, they are citizens of this nation, and a soldier pays income tax. I know a soldier pays income tax. Then why not a clergy? If a soldier pays income tax, then why not a clergy? The only exception that the soldier might get is that if he gets the army pension, army means army, navy, air force, whatever pension, and he after this given stipulated signing a period, if he comes out and gets employed elsewhere, he can get both the pensions. That's the only exception, as I've seen in the defenses. Defense pension remains so, and whichever other pension you get, that also you can get. This also the general. That's the only exception a soldier gets, because he vouched himself for this nation. He lived for the nation. Otherwise, no other great exceptions. A soldier, of course, is volunteer. Out of his love towards the nation, he just performs his obligation. He feels he is obliged to do, he does it. See, nuns arrest, there is nothing serious about it. If they have done mistake, they should be punished, and that's it. We shall meet again. Namaste. Jai Bharat, Jai Siya Ram.